I think the girls with their nails done now.
So, I just want to talk something really controversial in the Warframe community. What I will be talking here is about those things that some players are sick and tired of, or those things in Warframe that are hated because they are too good or literally broke the game. Now, this will not be a rant video, and the main purpose of why I created this is to show you that there is a better way compared to just suggesting that everything meta should be nerfed in this game. So first, let's discuss about the most controversial, and that is the melee influence arcane. A lot of Warframe players say the melee influence arcane is broken or that it killed the melee meta. You'll see it on Reddit, in Discord, or in-game chat. And to be fair, the complaints aren't coming out of nowhere, but blaming the arcane itself is missing the bigger picture. Let's be real. Yes, melee influence is currently the best arcane for most melee weapons. That part is true. It's become the default pick for a reason. But what many players ignore is why it's the best. It's not just about damage numbers. Influence actually fixed a long-standing problem in melee weapon design. Before melee influence, there were only a few options if you wanted to play melee seriously. Sure, there were other melee weapons, but they didn't stand a chance in actual gameplay unless you were using them just for fun or fashion. Most of them couldn't keep up with steel path enemies or room-clearing primaries. Melee influence changed that. It gave underused melee weapons a chance to shine. Suddenly, tons of older or weaker weapons became viable. Not top tier, but playable. That's a huge shift. Influence didn't ruin the melee meta, it saved it from being stale. Right now, people are calling for nerfs. But if Digital Extremes nerfs influence without offering a replacement, we'll just end up back where we started. Only a few melee's weapons worth using, and everything else collecting dust. A better approach? Add more arcanes like influence. Create more ways for different melee styles to work in real content. Let players choose how they want to play, instead of forcing them into one or two meta picks. The arcane didn't break melee in my opinion. It exposed how limited melee really was. And instead of taking that tool away, maybe Digital Extremes should start building more like it. Right now, most melee arcanes are built for super specific setups. Many are only useful for certain weapon types or very niche playstyles. Out of all the available options, maybe 4 can work well on most weapons. That's it. And among those 4, influence is the strongest by far. So naturally, players gravitate toward it. Just like they did with Hunter munitions back in the day. It's easy to use, works on most weapons, and boosts performance without needing a weird setup. That's not broken, it's just practical. But influence stands out for another reason. It's fun. It makes melee feel chaotic and satisfying, especially on weapons with high follow-through. You're not just killing enemies, you're clearing rooms, and that power fantasy hits in a way most melee arcanes don't. So why are people only now complaining about it? Nothing about the arcane has changed. It's been strong since day one. The sudden attention likely comes from recent changes to exalted melee weapons maybe, which now benefit even more from influence. Combine that with the fact that we still don't have many other arcanes worth using, and the spotlight on influence makes sense. This isn't a balance crisis, it's a design gap. And like I have said, influence isn't the problem. The problem is that it's the only arcane that makes melee fun and effective across the board. If players had more options that felt just as strong or just as fun, the meta wouldn't be stuck. Instead of nerfing the one arcane that works, maybe it's time to create more that do. Moving on, let's talk about the most popular meta weapon in the game, named the Incarnon Torrid. It's just hilarious when I see people raging when you suggest to use Incarnon Torrid to make a specific farming strategy faster. Oftentimes, you'll get slammed for using Incarnon Torrid because some players say that it's a weapon that takes no brain to play with. It gets weird when some will say that it takes no skill to use Incarnon Torrid. Well, they have a point, but correct me if I'm wrong, but most weapons in the game don't take any skills to use. Instead, they rely mostly on good builds, and if you have a decent build in your weapon, then it will perform well in even the hardest content in the game. In the case of Incarnon Torrid, the weapon is unmatched for different valid reasons. First of all, the weapon is ammo efficient. You only need its primary fire to build up Incarnon charges. And the best part is, unlike most Incarnon weapons that requires headshot to build its evolution stacks, the Incarnon Torrid will give you charges when you hit an enemy. It's the same as the Incarnon Prisma Angstrom, but when it comes to ammo efficiency, the primary weapon is way ahead of everything in my opinion. This is because every shot of its Incarnon form 2 is broken, as this gun turns into a beam weapon on its evolved form. Among all beam weapons also, the Incarnon Torrid is one of the best, if not the best when it comes to dealing damage. The weapon also got a decent Riven disposition that you can also roll good stats, such as further increasing the red crit capability of the weapon on its evolved form. This is why many players love this weapon, but some hate it because they think it's boring. While I agree that using the same weapon all the time will bore you sooner or later, but honestly, the weapon doesn't deserve the hate of those players who even suggest that it should get nerfed. The normal Torrid wasn't considered to be a good weapon in the past unless you use it for specific combos. However, you will still invest a lot to make it good. But after the Incarnon form, the weapon jumps from a mastery rank fodder to the top of the meta ladder. I really think that there's no harm on keeping the Incarnon Torrid the way that it is now because it deserves its Incarnon form, and also, it just makes farming easy. In addition, when you have the weapon, then progression will be a breeze, and steel path levels will be super easy for those who just started the grind. Honestly, Incarnon weapons in general are really strong right now, and I think it should be left as it is. Instead of nerfing, we should ask that Digital Extremes will release more Incarnon weapons in the future. This way, we will not complain anymore that we hate Duviri Paradox because of the randomizer. Next, let's talk about Limbo. Honestly, the Warframe doesn't deserve the hate because the fact is, Limbo is misused by players, and he won't be disruptive if the players chose to. Many Warframe players hate Limbo. The reason is simple: he ruins the flow of the game, if used wrong. Limbo has a unique skill set. He can send enemies and allies into the Rift, a separate dimension. Inside it, you can't be harmed by most things. That sounds great until you're trying to shoot something and suddenly can't. Or you're locked out of a defense point because a Limbo player froze time. That's where the hate starts. Limbo messes with how people play. He makes enemies untouchable, he freezes objectives, he stops fights mid-action, and most of the time he doesn't say anything. No warning, no plan, just chaos. But here's the thing, Limbo isn't the problem, the person using him is. When played well, Limbo can carry missions, he can protect objectives, he can stop damage from touching allies, he can lock down rooms of enemies. He's a support frame with high skill, timing, and control. He's not broken, just easy to misuse. Most Limbo players don't take the time to learn when and how to use his Rift. They press buttons without thinking. They leave allies stuck in the Rift. They throw down Cataclysm in the middle of an open area and run off. That's not a frame issue. That's bad team play. The truth is, any Warframe can be annoying if used wrong. A Nyx that never casts chaos, a Mesa who hogs all the kills in a group meant for XP sharing, even a Wisp who never drops her buffs. But we don't blame those Warframes, we blame the player. Limbo is no different. He just has more power to mess things up fast. That makes it easier for bad habits to show. But if a player takes time to learn, communicates, and plays smart, Limbo becomes a great asset. So instead of hating Limbo, hate bad teamwork. Call out poor play, not the Warframe. Because in the right hands, Limbo doesn't ruin missions, he saves them. Next, let's talk about shield gating. Some Warframe players dislike shield gating, but not because it's weak, it's because it feels wrong to them. Shield gating gives you a short window of invincibility after your shields break. You can avoid dying if you restore shields fast enough. On paper, that sounds great, but in practice, it pushes a very specific playstyle. It encourages spammy, ability-heavy builds. People run frames like Gauss or use mods like Brief Respite. It's not about smart timing or good reactions. It's about pressing buttons as fast as possible. Many hate that it overshadows other survivability options. Armor and health don't matter much when shield gating exists. You don't need to tank if you can just reset invincibility every second. Some say it's cheesy. It breaks immersion. You're walking through gunfire, completely untouched, just because you popped an ability in time. Others complain it's lazy design. Instead of fixing enemy damage scaling or making better health options, DE gave us shield gates and called it a day. So, the hate isn't because it's bad, it's because it's too strong, too safe, and too easy to abuse. Now, before you go, I would like to say something very important, and that is, even if I make 100 videos about why digital extremes shouldn't nerf this and that, there's no guarantee that they will listen. As a game like this is built on buffing and nerfing things so that players can experience something new in the game. Digital extremes are always listening on what their community is talking, and the easiest way to balance things in this game sometimes is to nerf one instead of buffing the others. While I love to see more buffs and add new content or items to help compete with the meta ones, but I haven't seen a meta survived for a very long time. Broken meta in this game always gets yeeted, and this is a fact. But like always, when something gets removed, digital extremes will always add new things to make the community interested again. The point is, nerf is inevitable in this game, and sometimes, when you see more players are complaining, it doesn't mean always that it's broken, but it means that the community is bored and wants something new to play in the game.